If you've had any cryptid encounters that you'd like shared on here, email me at jttosstories@gmail.com. Story 1. This is a real story that just happened to my best friend and me. I'm literally losing sleep over it. My friend and I are still trying to process exactly what we saw that day. We've talked it through countless times, trying to logically figure out how this was possible. Hopefully someone can give us some thoughts and ideas as to what actually happened. So I recently purchased a small bass boat, and my first mate Legov and I have been super eager to explore the lakes and its islands, as well as learn the fishing around it. We're new to Tennessee. On the 4th of July, we decided to go fishing in this very secluded part of the lake we named No Man's Land because of the low-hanging bridge that prevents boaters from entering the section. My boat can make it underneath because of how small it is, but I've never seen another boat in there. We decided to go deeper into the cove than we've ever been before. As we're slowly trolling down the lake, the path before us splits into 3 forks, and I ask which fork we should take. Legov immediately says the middle one, so we continue straight as the water changes from a large lake to a narrow river-like path. This is where a chain of events happened in quick succession, and we've talked it through after the fact to try and recall the order of how this went down. First, we heard a weird, vocal-like noise coming from the woods beyond the shoreline. We both tensed up and felt very uneasy. "What was that?" Legov asked. "A dog," I said, as that was the first thing that came to mind. "I don't think that was a dog," Legov answered immediately. Then we saw a bird, high above us, perching on a branch, staring at us. "Maybe it was that bird," Legov said. "Yeah, maybe," I answered. I'm not sure when it got into my mind, but at some point I drew my pistol and held it down at my side. Legov held the fishing bow. We both had a very weird feeling as we drifted down the river, eyes glued to the bank. We came to a rotting pine tree that had fallen and was now half submerged in the water, sitting on the shoreline. And then it happened. We hear a very loud, heavy-footed animal running through the woods, getting closer to the water. At first I thought it was a deer, as it was almost prancing. But as it got closer and louder, we both realized that it was in fact not a deer. It was a very large, jet-black canine. My brain thought, no, it must be a coyote. But this was much bigger, like a huge German shepherd. It was fast, like a black shadow, leaping through the trees and quickly approaching a bank that we were floating across from. Didn't seem to have any texture and details, though, almost like it was flat and blurry. We couldn't see fur or its face and eyes, just the outline of its body and tall, wolf-like ears. But it was obviously the body of a canine. Adrenaline started rushing through us, and my brain raced, thinking we were about to have to defend ourselves. It almost looked as if it were charging at us, but it was zigzagging and dodging through the trees, towards a portion of shoreline we were floating past. We were scared, but the 15 feet of water between our boat and the shoreline gave us some confidence. It had to swim out to us, and I didn't see that as likely. It continued leaping through the woods and quickly reached our portion of the shoreline. In one majestic, fluid motion, it leapt off the shore and dove into the water, right under the half-submerged pine tree in front of us. Stomp, 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 splash! That was it. We held our breath as we waited to hear it swim or move towards us. Small ripples reached our boat from the splash. After the fact, Legov swears the splash should have been much bigger for a creature that size. "Watch for it to come back up," I whispered. I'd never heard of canines being able to submerge themselves underwater, but here it was, happening right in front of our eyes. We waited. Nothing. Silence. Just the subtle sound of the ripples it made, slowly dissipating. We waited about 20 more seconds and still nothing. It was almost as if the entire forest had shut off. Silence. Our eyes were glued to the fallen pine tree it dove under. "Maybe it's just standing in the water under the tree," Legov says. We got the courage to troll the boat a little bit closer to inspect the tree, but there's nothing. No sign of anything. At this point, we're in utter shock. Stunned. It's gone. How could it be gone? How does something that big just vanish? Especially a huge creature like that. After 30 more seconds of silence, Legov breaks it with, "You saw what I saw, right?" A shiver flashes down my spine. "All of it," I reply. "Really though, what on earth was that?" Legov says. I replied, "I think we saw a demon." And we both laughed nervously. We stayed floating near the shoreline in shock for at least another 10 minutes, hoping for a sign that we weren't crazy. Legov scoured the waters looking to see if it would come up for air, but it never did. I mean, how could a big, black, wolf-like creature disappear into thin air, or water for that matter? Being skeptics, there has to be a logical explanation of what we saw, but we can't find one. If it had just splashed the water and gotten out again, well, one, we would have seen it walk away in whatever direction, and two, we would have heard it, as anything putting weight on the leaves makes a loud noise. But it was just silence. The loudest of silences. We live in Middle Tennessee, if that helps at all. We're still a little shaken up by this. This is 100% true. We're not lying to you, and any insight would be much appreciated. Story 2. It was about 5 p.m. in December of 2018. The day was warm at about 50 degrees, and I was done with my schoolwork, so I decided to ask my parents if we could go on a drive. I figured that it'd be a great day for seeing birds, specifically eagles, in the trees given the lack of leaves. This absence of foliage would also allow me to see something even more elusive. My entire family went on this car ride. We went to Crawford County, Indiana, and drove past Patoka Lake. I just stared out the window throughout the entire ride. On the road of English, while staring out the window, I saw something that I always thought to be impossible. I was once among the majority of people that denied the possibility of the existence of this creature. To this day, I still go by the belief that cryptids like the Mothman, the Jersey Devil, and Champ are just hoaxes. The lack of zoology in those stories is the reason that I'll never accept them as truth. Before I explain what I saw, I just wanted to talk about my dad. He's a probation officer, and therefore, there's no way that I could consume any illicit substances and hallucinate something like this. He's also an avid believer in Bigfoot, which is something I once questioned him for. He said that there are too many sightings there to not be something out there that people are seeing. Of the thousands of sightings, only one of them needs to be true for a Sasquatch to exist. There I saw it. We swiftly drove past it, but I was able to get a good enough look at it. My eyes felt as if they zoomed in on the creature. The ape stood at least 7 feet tall. It was covered in so much black hair that it drooped past its fingertips, and had an oddly domed head like a gorilla. It also apparently had the classic walk where it swayed its arms from front to back. I immediately picked up on a striking resemblance to the Patterson-Gimlin film. The only difference was that it seemed to have more hair, which would suggest a seasonal shed. Signs of Sasquatch suddenly made a lot more sense to me. This looked to be some form of human that either branched out before or between Homo sapiens. Unfortunately, I only saw the ape from the side and was unable to get a good look at its face. I was too entranced by what I saw to have said a word to my family members until 5 minutes after I saw it. It was apparently too late of a reaction, so we didn't see anything on the way back. I kind of wish that we could have gone into the woods in search of footprints, but it was late, and I guess we would have been trespassing. Apparently, I'm not the only individual to have had Sasquatch encounters in Crawford County, which isn't a surprise given the many miles of Hoosier National Forest surrounding the area. I haven't been able to find the pictures, but one person reportedly found footprints. I have developed a few theories on why Sasquatch has never had any definitive evidence. I think the individuals who search for Bigfoot are taking the wrong approach, with wood knocking and screaming at the top of their lungs. Rather than attracting the Bigfoot, they're scaring it away with the noises. I also theorize that Sasquatch likely lives a nomadic lifestyle, or travels from place to place. Given its height, the Bigfoot would also be able to move very fast if it felt the need to.